for you? Well, good afternoon, Mike. And in all the years that I've heard your voice, I don't think I've heard you as excited as you were this morning over the news about the new stadium that's going to be built for the Monarchs.
Well, I guess we have to hold ourselves in check a little bit because we're not there yet. But the plans are certainly exciting. There's a few hurdles to get over. Sure. But it could be a fantastic new era for the Monarchs. I've certainly, not that I'm in the forefront of this at all, but it's always been my dream to see the Monarchs fully established in my lifetime, really. And I don't think we ever felt at Armadale that we were fully established because although we were there a long time, we had quite a few struggles to keep going. And but this presents a whole new opportunity and something that could be a spectacular addition to Speedway, definitely.
Well, I remember reading that article that you wrote about the proposed new stadium that was going to be built within a mile, as the crow flies, from Armadale back in, was it 2010, 2012, something like that?
I think it was about 2012.
Yeah.
We were in touch with the owners of a site, but after we'd done some work on that, I think it was pretty much made clear to us that with a main road very nearby, it would be up to us to put in a roundabout in that main road.
Wow. And
the cost of that was prohibitive, and we couldn't continue with it. That was when Sainsbury's might have taken over Armadale Stadium.
Oh wow! Wow. Because it's interesting, isn't it, that when it was announced that Armadale had been sold for housing developments, that the council were keen to support the Speedway. And sometimes you think, well, are they just nice words and they don't have any meaning? But that seems to have been the case on this occasion, doesn't it?
Well, I can't put too much detail into it because, as I say, I'm not at the forefront, but Gordon Campbell, who is at the forefront, has found the West Lothian officials to be very helpful. Are you safe there?
Let me just pause. Apologies for that. One of the joys of having the two dogs is as soon as somebody comes to the door, but the bark is so piercing with the microphone and the headphones. It's like, oh.
So you want to start with that one again?
Yeah.
My answer. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah. It was to do with how the council have seemed to have backed the Speedway.
Yeah, so I haven't been involved in any of the discussions. It's entirely Gordon Campbell who's been forging ahead, and but everything he's told us suggests that the West Lothian officials and councillors want to be involved with this project and to support it, and certainly not put any obstacles in our path, I don't think.
I mean, looking at the obviously the screen behind me, obviously it looks like a Speedway stadium with an inner training track, and it doesn't look as if you've got any provision for either greyhound racing or football or any other sport. It's going to be purely a Speedway stadium.
Well, there will be other things going on in the stadium, but not these sports that you mentioned.
Sure.
Somewhere on my desk here, I've got our brochure.
Well, I've got the actual article that I can pop up on the screen.
Yes, but there is also a little brochure here.
Oh, right.
There's quite a lot of detail of the other things that we're planning to have in the stadium.
Excellent.
The Monarchs Speedway Academy is, of course, very important, and that's what the small track in the centre is.
Yeah.
Monarchs Community Initiative, allowing community groups to come and see the Speedway. A Speedway Museum. This is all in principle. There's no actual details yet. A rural urban training scheme known as RUTS, where various young people come to learn skills. The Monarchs Innovation Centre. It's all modern ideas, but good ideas.
Yep. And
a sporting memories group for those who are maybe starting to fade in their memory, and I'll probably be joining in that one, I should think.
I think so.
But we want to have as much as we can for the community in the stadium. That's the point, really.
Well, yes. I mean, it's obviously the fact that the council is on board. They don't tend to do that. Just off their own back. They tend to do it because they realise the advantages to the council in having the Speedway going, which is a huge hurdle to overcome, isn't there? Because some of the tracks around the country, they've got huge problems with people not wanting them there, and being vocal with the council. But whereas I can see up there in West Lothian, that the council are fully behind the idea of keeping the Monarchs going, because obviously it reflects well on them. And is that not the model of Polish Speedway, how it's become so successful? Is by having local government sometimes as sponsors of the actual team.
Yes. Oh, for goodness sake, can you just let me?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
It seems that we are destined to be disturbed, but never mind, Mike. Hopefully we'll get going. Can I share this article on screen with you? It's not very long. Would you be able to read through it for me? Or would you like me to do that?
Probably prefer if you did it, if you don't mind.
Okay.
But I think, do you want me to answer that previous bit as well?
Yes, please.
I wouldn't really liken anything in the UK to anything in Poland, because in Poland, Speedway is a very high profile sport, and local government and sponsors get involved to a huge extent. I don't think we can expect anything quite of that magnitude, but certainly just looking at our situation in isolation, having the council on our side is a huge plus.
Yep. Well, do you know who actually wrote this article? Was it maybe Graham Munsey or Dave Harley?
No, it'll be almost certainly Gordon Campbell,
right,
along with his brother.
Right. Okay. So headline: Monarchs announced plans for West Lothian Community Stadium. Edinburgh Monarchs Speedway is pleased to announce plans to construct a new stadium in the heart of West Lothian to open in spring 2023. West Lothian Community Stadium will host the Monarchs Speedway team alongside a range of products and youth initiatives, creating new opportunities for the local community. An extensive search has identified the ideal location for the stadium, just a stone's throw away from the M8 Junction 3A at Dean's Industrial Estate, Livingston. So you're moving a lot closer back to Edinburgh, aren't you?
It's a bit closer, certainly. Yes, it's not massively closer. Some people would obviously like it to be substantially closer, but this has the best of everything. It has a council that supports us, and of course, we've got fans in West Lothian as well as Edinburgh, so being in between is a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. It says here that following detailed discussions with West Lothian Council, the site has been selected for its ease of access, while also being in a place that will cause no disruption to local residents. Does that include noise? The fact that they're saying there are local residents, but
yeah, there's very little housing in the vicinity.
Right.
There are businesses, but that shouldn't interfere with the times that we're running the Speedway. We also have facilities, electricity and water and all that nearby.
Right.
Bus access to within a 10-minute walk, train access to, I believe, within a 20-25-minute walk. So it's pretty good from a lot of these standpoints.
Yeah. Okay, so plans are in place to construct a 1,500 capacity stadium with uninterrupted viewing of the internationally certified 260-meter speedway track, capable of hosting world events, and a youth training track for Monarchs Speedway Academy. Facilities for community activities will be incorporated into multi-use areas of the stadium. First of all, the 1,500, that includes obviously seating and standing.
It does. I think the fully envisaged plan would be 1,500 seats, but that will depend on the funding we can get, how quickly we can get to that point. We have various plans with slightly less ambition, where there would be some standing and some seating. So it depends how the funding goes.
Well, I suppose I would put it to you that having left Powder Hall 25 years ago, it's taken 25 years to get to the stage where you've identified a location and you're going to start building a track. So, I mean, these things do take time, have to be done in phases. Obviously we'll get on to that. And the 260 meters track, is that very similar in size to the current track at Armadale?
It's pretty much the same length as Armadale, but it's a different shape.
Sure.
The Armadale bends are quite tight. I personally like tight bends because it's a test of skill, but it's fair to say that modern machinery on Speedway, the riders like to go fast and the racing is then spectacular. So the more rounded and wider bends will lend itself to the modern machinery and the style of riding that the riders like to adopt nowadays.
Sure. I mean, I would be as guilty as anybody of suggesting, when Berwick were doing well at Barrington Lough, it was far better Speedway than some of the other tracks, because it is all about skill and being able to get around the tight track. But then, having gone to Exeter to then see Shieldfield Park, it's like, wow, it's so you've obviously looked at the planners at somewhere in between that, haven't they?
Yes, indeed. It's a relatively small track, but it's designed for modern racing, definitely.
Yes, yeah. And it says here capable of hosting world events. So, that's
yes, good. It'll be to FIM standards. So,
right.
Yes.
What sort of restrictions do they have then? Do they have restrictions on the width of the track and how?
Yes.
Yeah, stuff like that. And also, obviously, probably most important to both you and I is this whole idea of the youth training, of nurturing your own homebred talent, and not having to constantly buy in from abroad. A youth training track, which is actually going to be inside the main stadium, the main track.
Well, we have that at the moment at Armadale, and it's been such a roaring success. I don't know how many exactly we've got, but I've seen a photograph with about 10 young riders, all with their own machines, and that's only within a year. So that's probably the best thing we've done in the last 5 years, I should think. It's a tremendous success, and we've got great people working on bringing these youngsters through.
Yeah, I suppose looking at it from the Berwick point of view, the one obviously Leon that's made huge strides from his earliest days. It's a question I would often like to ask some of the Berwick people in charge of the junior team. How many juniors do you actually need to come through to produce one that's going to go on to be a heat leader in the main championship team? And I suppose it's difficult to quantify, isn't it? Because
well, if you look through programs from years ago of junior meetings,
yes,
it's surprising how few do reach a very good standard. So, okay, it's a matter of luck. You might hit on somebody who's going to do well, like Leon or like Dan Dooley that we had on our side a few years ago. But generally, if you have 20 juniors, you're probably only going to get one that's going to make a good standard. That's probably roughly the normal proportion.
And that's not to criticize the ones that would stay at that, say, junior level, and would be the sort of slow improvers, if you like. And there have been plenty of examples, haven't there, of people that have just slowly learnt their trade, have gotten better bit by bit until eventually, they're able to pass on that invaluable knowledge on to the youngsters.
Yeah, well, I could mention Andrew Tully, who took a few years to come to fruition, but eventually turned into one of the most exciting riders we ever had. So, yes, they don't all develop at the same speed. That's for sure.
No, which is a little bugbear of mine. If juniors aren't given that opportunity to develop slowly, just because they expect them to sort of immediately hit the ground running, to then get rid of them. My background is in musical education, and I learned from a very early age not to prejudge anybody over their first years of tuition. They could suddenly take off, and suddenly everything clicks into place because of the ground and they've had. Anyway, we're digressing. Let's carry on with the next bit of the statement. It says development will take a phased approach determined by available funds, continued Campbell, we will deliver a huge, high-quality stadium that will offer a terrific spectator experience and a base for community activities. Excuse me. Our plans will be implemented in a phased manner based on the funds that we attract, with funding almost in place for the very initial phase. So they're almost there as far as the sort of, I take it, the actual building of the track. I take it the building of the track must come first.
I wouldn't like to commit myself exactly on what that means. We've certainly got some funds promised and some funds suggested, but it's a bit of an early stage to say where we've got to. But I'm sure that's correct, that we can certainly get things underway anyway.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very interesting statement. We are actively looking to speak with anyone who would be interested in adding funds to allow us to accelerate through the phases of constructing West Lothian Community Stadium. Community activity will be a significant part of the regular operation of the stadium, with a broad base of projects already lined up, explained Campbell. In recent years at Edinburgh Monarchs Speedway, we have grown our community arm of the club, and the new stadium will be the catalyst to drive this further. An area of focus is to provide a platform for training and skills development to boost employability of local young people through initiatives such as Monarchs Speedway Academy, as you mentioned earlier, Ruts Rural and Urban Training Scheme, and Monarchs Innovation Centre. Let's carry on. West Lothian Community Stadium will secure the future of Edinburgh Monarchs Speedway for the long term, which has been a much sought after goal of the club. Monarchs co-promoter John Campbell said, "For years we have aimed to secure the future of the Monarchs. Today's announcement is a massive step towards this. West Lothian Council has been supportive of our efforts so far, but there is still much work to be done to deliver the stadium. We will need the continued backing of the local community and the council to secure the site for our use, to support the project through the planning application process, and to construct the stadium, while we also continue our efforts to secure as much funding as possible to build the best stadium we can for our fans and for the community. We would be pleased to hear from any businesses or interested persons with the ability to add funds or relevant skills to help construct the stadium. This is an immensely exciting project, and we believe it will capture the imagination of the local community, of Monarchs fans, and of the rider Speedway public to support us along the way. Anyone interested in supporting the Monarchs development of West Lothian Community Stadium can email future@edinburghmonarchs.co.uk. And it says here, display this Friday. Plans for the West Lothian Community Stadium will be on display at Armadale Stadium at this Friday's championship match against Scunthorpe. Scorpions, gates open 6:30, action starts at 7:30. So yeah, it's as you were saying, there's still one or two little things that need to be done, and I suppose you're not wanting to shout too much about this just yet, you know, for fear that something might go wrong.
There are a lot of hurdles to get over. Sure. It's not just one or two little things, but we're heading in the right direction.
As I say, for me, if you were battling to try and build a stadium and the local council was against you, that would be troublesome. The fact that they're behind you,
yeah, that does make a huge difference. Yes,
it's you know that is hugely encouraging. And isn't it interesting how I read that obviously we haven't had a chance much to talk about the sad closure of Glasgow. I actually read that there were people at the start of the season that were willing to come in and help the promoter.
You said Glasgow, you mean Newcastle?
Sorry, yes. Newcastle, yes. Yes. We can't talk about the sad demise of Glasgow just yet, can we? But no, sorry, yes, Newcastle. That there were people that were wanting, local businesses that were wanting to come in and help. So I mean, obviously, hopefully you'll get plenty of local businesses wanting to back this scheme, because there's as I say, having the council behind it, it's a good venture to be involved with, surely.
Well, we certainly hope so. We'll need to find out how many emails have come into future at Edinburgh Monarchs so far.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it interesting how, as I say, always contrast and compare the Monarchs with the Bandits, how Shielfield Park is actually owned, or at least certainly was owned, by the Berwick Rangers Supporters Club. And now the stadium has got this protection order on it. It cannot be knocked down and houses built on it, much as developers would like. It has to keep its sporting status.
A round of applause to Berwick for that.
Well, yeah.
We've never been in a stadium with that status. Maybe we will be this time. I don't know.
Well, that's maybe what hopefully will be the case, because there's no point in the council getting involved in something and then, you know, reversing that decision later on down the line. I just thought it's got to be good for the Monarchs. It's all looking very good. As I say, I could tell by the tone of your voice, Mike. It was the most excited I've heard you for a long time.
Well, it's a very nice looking stadium. I just hope that we can deliver it.
Well, yes, obviously they're talking about it being phased, and you know, so obviously at some point it might be a case of going along, and at the start of the season there might be just a track, you know, and some terracing and stuff. I mean, look at Barrington Lough. It wasn't the stadium that it was at the end when it first started off, you know, but
yeah.
It didn't take much to get Barrington Lough up and running.
Yeah, that was a very impressive piece of work. Unfortunately, it didn't last. I don't know how Berwick viewed the competition between having a stadium in town and having one a fair bit out of town. I don't know.
Yeah,
Barrington Lough was very good.
It was, from the point of view of intimidating the opposition, certainly.
Yeah.
But I think the problem was trying to bus people out to Barrington Lough from the town. It was decided it would be far better to carry on at Shielfield. And of course, the stadium capacity has probably been limited a bit, but it's still over 4,000, you know. So, I mean, can you imagine if we were ever to have a Bandits Monarchs match with 4,000 people in the stadium? That would be some going, isn't it? And yet, is that not how it was in the days of Meadowbank? I've heard people telling me about when they went to Meadowbank, and there were literally 20, 30 buses queuing up, dropping people off, ready to pick them up.
The biggest crowd, I have a lot of crowd figures from Meadowbank, and the biggest crowd that I've seen is 25,600
Wow.
in 1949. And we did have a crowd of over 10,000 in 1963, but that's a long time ago. There was no TV in 1949, and there wasn't many of the other attractions in 1963. So I would like to see us get back into the four figures at all tracks. That's really perhaps a sensible ambition. We're never going to get back to 25,000 again, I'm afraid.
And yet, you know, the Cardiff Grand Prix is a sellout every year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's certainly true. I think I've always felt that if somebody with several billion pounds, not million, but billion, building tracks such as they have in Poland, I think Speedway could really be big business then.
Yeah.
But how we ever make that happen, how we ever find a person like that, I don't know. Even the lottery doesn't bring you billions of pounds.
No, I was going to say that the whole idea of having the local council behind you, local politicians supporting your venture, you know, to build this new stadium, certainly that is based on the, if you like, the Polish model, you know. And,
yeah,
that's the encouraging thing. As I say, it's you know, when you've read so much you know, despair over the last few weeks about Speedway, and you know, people were complaining bitterly about the live match on was it Monday night, the Sheffield Ipswich match. You know, I don't know, how do you promote the sport when there's a meeting like that really, for a lot of people, it didn't float their boat?
Well, nobody could have enjoyed that because there were so many delays, and yet it was quite a good meeting when it was actually running.
Yes.
But that shouldn't be allowed to happen.
It shouldn't, but I suppose we're dealing in what at one time was the biggest summer sport in the UK, but it's now a minority sport, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I did want to ask you was, when Powder Hall obviously was, well, both the Greyhounds and obviously the Speedway got evicted to Powder Hall, and I've seen pictures of the latest housing development there. Is there any sense of the people who would have been so disappointed back then 25 years ago, their dream has finally come true, that you're going to build a stadium just for the Monarchs, just for Speedway?
Well, that's certainly how people that I know are seeing it. Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, we've acquired a lot more supporters, new supporters since those days, but there's still plenty of us old timers left, and they'll all be seeing it that way today. They'll all be seeing that this could be the best thing since we had Powder Hall.
Yeah. And are there, obviously apart from yourself, who is an absolute club legend, are there other members of the promotion who were part of the promotion at Powder Hall when it closed?
Yes, well, John Campbell's been there since 1982, I think. Ronnie Anderson's been there since the start of Powder Hall. I think apart from John's boys, Graham and Gordon are very important to us. They're too young to have been at Powder Hall. Right. And some of us go back to Meadowbank, of course, as well in the 60s. So you forget how long ago that is, of course. Yep. More than 50 years.
So I'd better let you dash over to this party at Mr. Campbell's house to celebrate the latest news and enjoy yourself and celebrate, because it really is, it's excellent news. Whilst we all support our own individual teams, the Speedway community is just absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? Everybody cares about everybody else. Everybody wants to see everybody flourishing. Yes, on the track, we want to see our team win. But if we don't, we say congratulations to the opposition. But it's a great community, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely correct. I think there's a kind of feeling that we're all in the same boat. We're all struggling to one extent or another, and but we want these speedway tracks to survive and thrive. Definitely.
Yeah. No, it's excellent news. Do you know it was even mentioned in the Berwick Speedway advertising of tonight's match against Poole down at Wimborne Road. Even they were congratulating Edinburgh Monarchs on securing this new stadium. So,
that's terrific.
Yep. Final thoughts. What do you reckon tonight for Poole and Berwick? And I believe it's Oxford against
Leicester.
Leicester. That's right. Any thoughts on who you think is going to prevail in those two matches?
I'd have to say I'd be a little surprised if Berwick managed to beat them, to be honest. Sure. I'm not sure if Danny King's fit or what they're doing to replace him, but I would expect a Poole victory, maybe a point for Berwick.
Yeah.
And it's in Summers and Paul Stark, which is they've turned their team into a very good team, but of course they're up against Leicester, who are also a very good team. So a draw for that one, perhaps.
Yes, what's interesting, I think, is we've got Jordan Jenkins reserved for one and Jason Edwards reserved for the other. So you've got the two of the hottest reserves in the country at the moment. Or is Jonas Knudsen going to become the hottest reserve?
So let's wait and see. But that's a bold move by the Bandits, definitely.
Yeah. Well, just to say that you mentioned Paul Stark. He is going to be our guest on the live chat tomorrow, along with Lee Complin. But in the meantime, Mike, many thanks for joining me. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. The internet did go a little bit squiffy for a wee moment then, but you go and enjoy the party at John Campbell's house, and you can tell me what you can remember of it the next time I see you.
Okay then.
Cheers, Mike.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.